You pick up your phone, not because it buzzed, not because anyone messaged you. You picked it up because for 1 second you were alone with a thought you didn't want to finish. Maybe it was about someone you miss. Maybe it was about something you said. Or maybe it was about who you have become and how far that is from who you actually wanted to be. You didn't decide any of that consciously. Your hand was already moving before the thought even finished forming. That's not a coincidence. That's practice. You've gotten good at this, disturbingly good. After an argument, after a silence that went on too long, after memory that surfaced you didn't ask for. You weren't bored, you were escaping. This is what emotional avoidance actually looks like, and this is what we will be talking about in this video. Now, what's emotional avoidance? Most of the time, it looks like productivity, staying busy, moving on. You throw yourself into work, start cleaning, make one more joke, or change the subject. Anything except sitting still with whatever's trying to surface. And the trap is, it works. The discomfort fades, which creates the illusion that you have solved something. But you didn't. Feelings don't disappear when you ignore them. They disappear from your awareness. And those are two completely different things. You can avoid a feeling for an hour, a day, years even. But avoided feelings always come back, and almost never as themselves. They come back as anxiety you can't explain, irritability that comes from nowhere. Here's the uncomfortable question. If avoidance works so well, why do you still feel overwhelmed? Because emotional avoidance was never the absence of a feeling. It's the postponement of one. The bill still arrives, just later, usually with interest. This has nothing to do with being weak. Some of the most capable, high-functioning people you know are doing this constantly. And from the outside, they look completely fine, which is exactly what makes the pattern so hard to see. Until one day, something small happens, a comment, a bad week, and the reaction you have is way bigger than the moment deserves. Almost like something older was sitting underneath, waiting. You're not avoiding emotions because you dislike them. You're avoiding them because somewhere along the way, you learned certain feelings weren't safe to have. And once your mind learns that, it gets very good, very fast at staying one step ahead of anything uncomfortable. Here's what should bother you. The exact strategy protecting you from pain is the same one keeping you from understanding it. That's the moment avoidance stops being a habit and becomes a way of living, a way of moving through your entire life without ever stopping long enough to ask one simple question. What am I exactly feeling right now? For a lot of people, that's the hardest question they have never asked themselves. So let's go back to where this actually starts. You didn't decide to avoid your emotions. The pattern built itself long before you knew it existed. Because this was never really about the emotions. It was about what they came to mean. Now picture yourself as a kid. You're sad, you started crying, and someone says, "Stop crying, it's not a big deal, toughen up." That sentence seems small. But you were learning something much bigger than the words, whether sadness was welcome, whether it was safe. Now picture yourself angry as a kid. Every time you showed it, something blew up. Conflict, punishment. So you learned fast, not how to manage anger, but how to hide it. Or even picture yourself afraid, reaching for assurance and getting there's nothing to worry about, you're overthinking. The emotion itself became the problem, not whatever caused it. And your nervous system started writing rules. Not rules you'd say out loud, the protective ones. Sadness creates discomfort, hide it. Anger creates problems, so hide it. Fear creates judgment, hide it. That strategy made perfect sense for a kid with zero control over their environment. This is why emotional avoidance was never a flaw, it was survival. A strategy that actually worked for a while. You grew up, the rules didn't leave with childhood. A feeling starts to surface, and almost instantly distractions shows up. A hard conversation starts, and instantly a joke shows up. You're not consciously choosing any of this. The avoidance happens before you're even aware of it. It feels like personality, but it's not. It's protection. And protection was never trying to help you grow. It was trying to help you survive. Your nervous system doesn't care whether a feeling is useful. It only cares whether it feels safe. Grief is useful. It also hurts. Vulnerability is useful. It also feels risky. So your nervous system steps in not because it's broken, because it's doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is healing requires the opposite. Growth means moving towards discomfort. Connection means sharing it. So there's a war inside you constantly. One part wants relief, one part wants resolution. That is why avoidance is so exhausting. Like getting a notification every hour and just swiping it away again and again. The notification doesn't pile up because you read them, they pile up because you didn't. And those unfinished feelings start showing up in places you'd never expect. The emotion changes clothes, it never actually leaves. Here's the uncomfortable possibility. What if the emotions causing you to most trouble right now aren't the ones you feel too much, but the ones you never let yourself feel at all? Most people picture avoidance like a locked door. Feelings stay behind it. Door stays shut. Problem solved. Feelings don't work that way. They are far more persistent. When you don't process something, it looks for another way out. And by the time it comes back, it usually doesn't even look like the original feeling. So you start guessing at the wrong problem. Maybe I need more discipline. Maybe I just need a vacation. Sometimes that helps. Usually it doesn't, because the real problem was never the symptom. It was the conversation that never happened, the feeling that never got to finish. Think about ignoring a text message. The message doesn't get less important. The sender just gets more persistent. Emotions work almost exactly the same way. A feeling that could have been processed in 20 minutes can stretch into months of background tension. Not because the emotion is pushing you, because it's trying to finish. Here's the biggest misconception about emotions. Most people treat them like obstacles. They are actually signals. Fear says, pay attention. Sadness says, something mattered. Grief says something important was lost. The emotion is carrying information. Avoidance cuts the message off halfway through the delivery. So your nervous system just sends it again until something finally listens. That is why you can feel constantly busy and still feel disconnected. From the outside, everything looks fine. Inside, you're carrying dozens of unfinished experiences, each one quietly demanding energy. Try holding a beach ball underwater. Easy for a few seconds, exhausting after a few minutes. Eventually, your grip gives out, and everything you are holding down rises to the surface at once. This is exactly what happens to a lot of people. You manage, you cope, you stay busy until one bad period hits, a breakup, a loss, a burnout, and the reaction you have feels completely disproportionate to what's actually in front of you. You're not reacting to one event, you are reacting to dozens of unfinished ones all at once. And here's the biggest paradox: avoidance exists to reduce pain. Over time, it usually increases it. The exact emotions you have spent years running from might be the same ones that could finally set you free if you were willing to face them. So, why are you afraid to? Because underneath all of this sits a belief you have never questioned out loud, that some feelings are simply too much to handle. If I let myself feel this, I won't be able to handle it. The feeling itself becomes the threat, not the event. The problem is that logic is built on an assumption you have never actually tested. You're probably not afraid of emotions you have actually experienced. You're afraid of emotions you have never let yourself fully feel. Someone avoids grief for years, convinced it will destroy them, but never actually finds out what grief feels like when they let it move through them instead of around it. The fear stays theoretical. Your nervous system treats it like fact anyway. This is the strangest part. The less experience you have with the feeling, the more terrifying it becomes. Picture someone who never learned to swim. The water looks dangerous, but they never find out water behaves completely different once you're actually in it. Same with emotions. From a distance, they look enormous. Inside the actual experience, most are survivable. Because at some point, feeling something deeply, genuinely was overwhelming. Maybe you were too young, too alone, or too unsupported. The feeling showed up. The resources to handle it didn't. And your nervous system learned one lesson: never let that happen again. That situation is long gone. The lesson never left. You're not avoiding the emotion anymore. You're avoiding the memory of being overwhelmed by it. The fear isn't "I can't handle sadness." It's "I can't handle feeling the way I felt back then." Your nervous system confuses the past with the present, but you have changed. Only the fear stayed exactly the same. But here's the irony: the emotion is rarely what you're actually scared of. You're scared of losing control. Emotions don't actually work that way. They are waves. They rise, they peak, they fall. What makes them feel endless is usually the resistance, not the feeling itself. And here's what most people discover almost every time they finally stop running. The feeling they spend years avoiding is painful, but nowhere near as painful as the years of anticipating it. Every time this happens, the emotion gets less threatening. Not because the emotions changed, because your relationship with it did. You learned something your nervous system never actually believed before. I can feel this and still be okay. That's where healing quietly starts. Not when the feelings disappear, when the fear of feeling them does. This was never really about emotions. It was always about safety. And here's something most people never connect. The way you handle your own emotions become the exact same way you handle everyone else's. Someone asks you, "How are you?" You think this is a question about information? It almost never is. It's an invitation to be known. And if you've spent years avoiding difficult feelings, that invitation feels threatening. Not because you don't trust the person asking, but because you don't trust what might show up if you actually answer honestly. So you say, "I'm fine, just tired." The conversation moves on, and the discomfort disappears. So does the chance at actual connection. This happens in completely ordinary moments. The exact moments relationships are actually built in. You feel hurt, you don't mention it. You feel lonely, you don't mention it. The feeling stays hidden. The relationship stays shallow. Not because anyone meant for that to happen, because vulnerability never walked into the room. This is why emotionally avoidant people get so misunderstood. From the outside, they might look distant, guarded. What people are actually seeing is protection, not indifference. You're not hiding from the people around you. You're hiding from whatever might show up the moment you stop hiding. Real intimacy with anyone requires access to your thoughts, your fears, the part that you aren't comfortable with. Avoidance quietly blocks that access. You become great at describing events, terrible at describing how they are actually affecting you. Over time, this builds a painful and totally avoidable misunderstanding. You feel unseen. The people who love you feel shut out. You think nobody really knows me. They think you never let us know you. The distance grows not from conflict but from absence. The absence of honesty, of shared vulnerability. And here's the part that makes it self perpetuating. Avoidance attracts more avoidance. If you never talk about hard feelings, people eventually stop asking. The relationship stays peaceful, it does not stay connected. This is exactly why some relationship looks perfectly healthy from the outside and feels completely lonely from inside. Avoiding conflict was never the same thing as creating closeness. The conversations you're avoiding right now are usually the exact ones that would create the most connection. "I'm struggling, I'm scared, I don't want to do." Those sentences feels dangerous to say. They are also the moments that change relationships forever. A shared reality, two people looking at the same truth together, not around it, through it. Maybe that's the real cost here. Not the emotions you don't feel, the connections you never get to fully have. Because those emotions never got the chance to be seen. So, if avoidance creates this much distance, why does it keep going? Because avoidance works, at least short term. And that's exactly what makes it so hard to quit. Touch a hot surface. You pull your hand back instantly. The discomfort drops. Your nervous system learns pulling away creates relief. Emotional avoidance runs on the exact same wiring. Relief is incredibly persuasive because your brain doesn't prioritize long term growth, it prioritizes immediate safety. Except escaping discomfort and actually resolving it are two completely different things, and your brain struggles to tell them apart. A feeling shows up, avoidance kills the discomfort. The avoidance gets reinforced. Days becomes months, months becomes years. Eventually, you forget there was ever another option. Avoidance stops feeling like a strategy and starts feeling like your personality. I just don't overthink things. I'm not an emotional person. Sometimes that's just who you are. A lot of time, it's adaptation wearing personality's clothes. Think about how modern life is basically built for this. Feel uncomfortable? Open an app. Feel lonely? Watch something. Feel anxious? Stay busy. No generation in history has had this many tools for escaping their own internal experience this fast. Which means avoidance doesn't even take effort anymore. It happens automatically. A feeling starts to surface, and before you're even aware of it, your attention has already moved. And here's what's strange. When people finally remove the distraction, not forever, just briefly, the emotion they expect to destroy them usually reveals something completely different. The sadness reveals a loss. The anger reveals a boundary that got crossed. The loneliness reveals a need for connection. It was trying to tell you something, but that requires attention, and avoidance is specially built to remove it. Which is why healing never starts with controlling your emotions, it starts with listening to them. You stop asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? And start asking, why is this feeling here? So, what does healing this actually look like day to day? Not hours of self reflection. This is smaller than that, quieter than that, because this was never a problem of emotion. It's a problem of tolerance, your ability to stay with discomfort long enough to actually understand it. Nobody gets strong lifting the heaviest weight on day one. Emotional tolerance builds the same way. It's to get slightly less afraid of what you feel, one moment at a time. The target is emotional confidence, the certainty that whatever shows up, you can stay with it. Now picture two people feeling exact the same sadness. One immediately tries to escape it, the other lets it exist. Same pain, completely different experience. And space is usually what an emotion actually needs, not a fix, just space. This is why the most important moments in healing look almost invisible from the outside. Sitting quietly for 5 minutes instead of grabbing your phone, or admitting you're hurt instead of saying you're fine. Small moments, massive psychologically, because each one teaches your nervous system something completely new. That feeling arrived and I survived. Over and over, a new belief starts replacing the old one. Not I must avoid this, but I can handle this. Because emotional avoidance was always built on one misunderstanding, that feeling pain is the same thing as being harmed. It's not. Pain is part of being alive. Being harmed is something else entirely. A hard emotion can hurt you without damaging you. It can shake you without breaking you. It starts seeing them from what they actually are. Temporary signals, waves, just part of being human. And maybe that's the truth sitting underneath all of this. The emotions you have spent years running from were never trying to hurt you. They were trying to bring you back to yourself. Back to needs you ignored, boundaries you abandoned, truths you never said out loud, not even to yourself. The emotion was never the obstacle, it was the guide. The sadness is pointing out somewhere. The feeling is pointing out somewhere. The real question is whether you're willing to follow it. Because emotions that gets ignored tend to get louder. Emotions that get understood tend to get quieter. Not because they vanish, but because they stop needing to fight for your attention. The willingness to stay present with your own experience, to trust that a feeling can move through you without taking you down with it. Because the opposite of emotional pain was never numbness. The opposite of emotional pain is understanding. The feelings you have been avoiding were never trying to hurt you. They have just been waiting for you to listen.